All right, so the question was, what's the difference between arrogance and confidence? Appreciate the question. Big up for that. It's an interesting question, methinks. So let me see if I can tackle this. By the way, if you could hear a fan going, that's my air conditioner. Air conditioner? Yeah, air conditioner, not hair conditioner. That's something else. But yeah, that's noise in the background if you could hear it. Anyway, so the difference between confidence and arrogance. So I guess there's a lot of different ways of defining the difference. But the way I think about it is to do with space. So however tall you are, however big you are, small, whatever, short, whatever size you are, that is the space that you have, right? But the thing is, a lot of times we don't take up the space that we have. We slouch, we don't sit up straight, or we maybe hang our heads down when we're walking around. We don't take up the space that we have, right? Now, one day you might decide, actually, I'm going to take up the space that I have. And you're gonna stand up straight. You're gonna hold your head up high, and you're gonna take up the space that you have. Now that to me is confidence. Now somebody else might look at you and say, arrogant prick, stuff like that. It's not arrogance, it's just confidence. Now the difference between arrogance and confidence for me would be, are you trying to take up somebody else's space? See, people look at you and say you're arrogant because maybe they're not taking up the space that they have. Maybe they're insecure about it, or maybe they're embarrassed or whatever. When they say you taking up your space, they say you're being arrogant, but you're not taking up somebody else's space. You just take up your own. You're just living in what's been given to you, your space. That's confidence, knowing that you have the space and being willing to take up the space that you have. Now, if you're trying to take up somebody else's space, if you're trying to make other people feel bad, make other people feel small, make other people feel like they don't deserve the space that they have, that you're somehow entitled to more than what you have, that to me is arrogance. So let's put that in, I guess, everyday normal terms. Let's say you're at your job and, you've got somebody at your job that is trying to make you feel bad about yourself. You say something like, I think we should, merge with the company or whatever, right? And then somebody else is there just making you feel like that's a stupid idea. Why would we do that? That's dumb. Of course disagreements happen in all the time, but I'm not talking about disagreement here. I'm talking about somebody making you feel stupid or trying to make you feel stupid, right? Because somebody can say, you know what, I disagree and this is why I disagree. That's fine. But they're actually trying to make you feel stupid. Why are they trying to make you feel stupid? Like there's no need for that. But people do that because they're trying to take up your space. They're trying to make you feel bad. They're trying to make you feel like you don't deserve the space that they have, that somehow all your ideas are stupid and rubbish while all their ideas are great and fantastic. That's arrogance to me. You're trying to take up somebody else's space. I think another thing that comes into it as well is self-awareness, because if you lack self-awareness, I think you'd always fail in just about everything, because when you are just completely unaware of what you are able to do and you have this deep-rooted belief that you are beyond making any kind of mistakes, and then because of that, no matter how many mistakes you make, no matter how many things you get wrong, no matter how many screw-ups and things that you cause, bad things that you cause, you can never accept that it's your fault. There's people like this. They can never accept that it's their fault. It's always somebody else's fault that they screw. Even though they clearly screwed up, somehow it's your fault. There's people like that because they just lack self-awareness. I think self-awareness is an important part of it. Being aware of what you are able to do, and also just as important, being aware of what you are not able to do. Don't tell people you can do 20 when you know you can do 10, right? And of course, it's good to stretch yourselves and to push yourselves and things like that. But at the same time, if you know you can do 10, say you can do 10. You might want to try for 11 or try for 12, but don't create this impression of yourself that you are better or far better than you actually are, when you could just say, I can do 10. That guy over there can do 10. And then both of us together can do 20. Because I think an important part of being confident is not just knowing what you can do, but also being able to lift other people up as well, to bring other people into it as well. If I'm being offered a job where they need 20 done, rather than saying, oh, yeah, I can do 20, even though I can't, and just messing up everything and screwing it all up for everybody, I can say, no, I can do 10. Let me bring this guy in. They can do 10. You get 20 done. and we're all eating. You know what I mean? We're all doing well. You got your 20, you know, and you paid for your 20. I got paid for the 10. I give the other guy gets paid for 10. We're all eating. Rather than trying to take everything for myself and just screw up the project because I can't do what's being asked. And now this guy has to get somebody else to do it, or, you know, things, and it's just messing up everything. That's arrogant behavior. That's lacking self-awareness. Arrogance is just, to me, is that lack of self-awareness. That being so in your own head that you don't fully realize the outside world. You know what I mean? Like that's the difference to me. I don't know, maybe a psychologist would say something else, but that's how I think about the difference in space. You take up the space you have, be aware of the space you have, but also be aware that not all space belongs to you. And other people can enjoy their space too. And it's fine if you want to stand up straight and somebody else wants to stand up straight. You don't have to be the only person standing up straight. In fact, it's best that you're not. Because if we're all confident, we could all get amazing things done. You know, but if you're trying to take up space and trying to take up somebody else's space and trying to make people feel bad about this, and, you know, trying to make yourself bigger than you are, or seem more than you actually are, there ain't no need for that. There ain't no need for that. You know, we could all eat. There's plenty to go around. We could all eat. I know it feels like there's not enough to go around. I know it can feel like, you know, we have to, you know, compete and all this and whatever. But the truth is, there's plenty to go around. It doesn't always look like the way you think it's going to look like, but there's plenty to go around. We could all eat. We could all live in our confidence. There's enough for everybody. But anyway, that's what I think about it. Let me know what you think. Peace.